everybody? Happy Memorial Day weekend. Good for you for being up already on a long weekend. Saturday morning, watching the show already. Props to you guys. You may notice this is also like a skeleton crew. It's just you and me.
Space up here.
And you know, we'll talk about what's coming up on the show in a second. I'm actually a little relieved that Claudia wasn't able to join us. Did you hear that she's never seen Superbad?
Kids these days.
I don't understand. That is like, for someone that likes dumb movies, you are like king of the dumb movies.
Oh yeah, Superbad's up there. And Superbad's actually one of the good ones. I like bad ones too, but Superbad is good.
So when I heard that news, I said, you know what? I'm glad she's not here this weekend because I don't know if I can make it through a 2-hour show looking at her and knowing she's never seen it.
When I saw that, I had the same reaction at first, and then I remembered Claudia is like born in the late 90s.
Right.
So that was like I saw that movie in like high school. That movie's what, like 2006-ish?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
So she's in like elementary school when it comes out. So
but there are movies.
I feel like there's movies like, I don't know, like Dumb and Dumber, like you're like younger.
Right.
When that came out, you come back and watch it.
Right.
So she should have come back and watched it because it's an excellent movie.
Glad we got that off our chest. Okay, what's coming up on the show here today for the next 2 hours? Obviously, lots of NBA
talk about why Superbad's in the news.
We actually should talk about that. We're going to talk about the Celtics looking to stay hot on the road. That 2-0 series lead over the Pacers. We got 3 huge races this weekend. Pierce Dietrich's going to join the show. Going to break all that down for us as well. Myself, Nick Fryer, we're going to be talking about MLB all throughout the show as well. So lots to get to. Lots of bets to make in this next 2 hours of the show. But as always, as we start every show, Julian, we're going to start with working up a sweat. What are we looking towards as we start the show here? I'll let you kick things off here. Obviously, lots of NBA going on and looking like we may have a finals matchup kind of maybe getting set up already here.
Yeah, Celtics 2-0. Kyrie 2-0. Could it be a collision course of an NBA Finals that would have quite a bit of buzz behind it? But we got plenty of segments to talk NBA, and we only have 2 matchups left to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave the NBA for those segments, and I will go to college football, which keeps approaching. I know you think it's too early for football, but it's not.
Not at all.
We have a lot of games on the board on DraftKings Sportsbook already.
For NFL and college football.
Well, NFL, we have everything on the board. So if there's a game this season and you want to bet it, it's on the board on DK Sportsbook. College, we're still waiting to get the full card up, but we have plenty of games all the way through, I think, into November. But I'm looking at that week 1. It's a Thursday night football game heading into week 1, going into, I think, we're at Memorial Day weekend, so going into Labor Day weekend is when this game will happen. So I'm betting Labor Day games on Memorial Day. North Carolina goes to Minnesota. I started doing a little bit of my college football season research.
Yep.
Minnesota ranks 19th in terms of talent returning. North Carolina, out of 134 college football teams, I believe is 127th in terms of returning talent. Obviously lost Drake May, 3rd overall pick in the draft. That's a big void at quarterback. Lost some receivers. UNC lost a ton. I'm not too high on Minnesota overall this year. I think their win total is 5.5, so it's really, are they going to be a 500 team or not? But I started going through and I saw that this game is week 1. You have one of the least experienced teams in the country traveling to one of the more experienced teams in the country for a Thursday night game. And that jumped out at me right away. So I said, why not bet Minnesota in that game? They're laying 1.5 on DraftKings. I think they'll be at least a 3-point favorite by the time this game goes off.
So I'm curious about this too, because obviously the points that you laid out are obviously good points here, especially when you talk about the lack of talent that's returning for North Carolina. Why is the line set as it is already? Why would it open already at like 2.5 or 3, in your opinion?
I think it's just hard to price games. And you look back and say, hey, North Carolina's pretty good. They've had some good years. Minnesota, the win total's only 5.5. They're not going to be that good this year. But in a week 1 game where experience matters, home field probably matters, and again, this isn't a Saturday noon game, it's a Thursday night, 8 p.m., I think, game, so you should get, all the kids back to school, good crowd. In a game where experience, first game of the year, you're like, the only way to gain that experience is playing games this year.
Yep.
The toughest situation to be in is probably like a Thursday night primetime game. It's going to be on one of the networks, I'm sure. That's a tough game to kind of get your bearings. So again, a lot of games on the board, a lot of research still needed to be done. I'm nowhere close to done, but those two things just going through experience caught my eye, and I said, wow, these two teams play each other with Minnesota having home field in week 1.
All right, so I'm going to switch over to MLB. Not particularly a bet, but something that happened on Thursday that was just so ridiculous, and it just kind of goes to the notion that, we need to change umpires. Maybe umpires need to be held more accountable of what happened. So let me kind of lay this out here. So Thursday night, the Orioles were having another kind of ninth inning meltdown. It didn't actually have anything to do with Craig Kimbrell, which was shocking because that's usually where the ninth inning meltdowns come.
Shocking part of the story.
But they did. So White Sox are coming back. They were down 8-2 in the ninth inning. They got all the way back to 8-6. And then the Orioles say, okay, this is a good time to bring in Craig Kimbrell. The White Sox are like, okay, this is where we're actually going to win this game. Because Kimbrell's on the mound, that's all he does. I don't know why he's still the closer. Nonetheless, so they got two guys on. Andrew Benintendi comes to the plate, and pops up, okay? So infield fly rule is in effect. If you're not familiar with what an infield fly rule is, basically the runner, the hitter is out automatically. This is so that the infielder doesn't drop the ball and then basically creates a double play. So, kind of doesn't do anything screwy here. But after he catches that, Gunnar Henderson catches that, they also say Andrew Vaughn is out at second base. So everybody's like, what happened? Like infield fly rule was called? What's the issue? And they say that Andrew Vaughn at second obstructed with Gunnar Henderson, and thus that makes him out too as well. Now, obviously, we don't have the footage that we can show here, but in no way did Andrew Vaughn bump into, especially, on purpose, to Gunnar Henderson. So just to further illustrate how egregious this was, there was a report from Jesse Rogers from ESPN who said that the league reached out to the White Sox per source, essentially told them the obstruction call to end the game should not have been made, and there is some discretion here. And the umpires kind of got together and talked about this too, and still couldn't come to the conclusion that this game should continue. They had the Orioles on the ropes here. Craig Kimbrell's on the mound. He's probably going to blow the game because that's all he does. But it just further goes into the argument that something needs to be done about these umpires. These umpires need to be held accountable for the mistakes that these made, or and the awful calls that were getting behind the plate and whatnot. But, Rob Manfred had said we're still not ready for robot umps. We saw that as well. Unlikely for next season. There was a lot of rumors going around that maybe you would get robot umps starting next year. It is coming at some point. We just don't know when that's going to happen. And I'm all for it. When you're watching these games, it feels like it's getting more egregious, these calls that are being made, especially in big situations. There's a couple games already for the Braves where big calls were made against them and that they end up losing some of these games. But I'm all for these robot umps and everything like this, and just seeing something like that, these guys need to be held accountable too as well. Over in the KBO, they have these intense trainings and everything, and over here it's just nothing. It's just that sucks. We're gonna keep rolling here.
Yeah, I mean, in every sport we have our one thing. I mean, baseball is a little different. Baseball is the only one I think that baseball is such a numbers game, and it's the only one where I feel like robots could be used successfully to perfectly measure something. I know in football, the one piece where maybe computers or robots get involved is where get rid of the chain gang.
Yeah.
Be we don't need these men running around carrying chains 10 yards apart to measure this. We can probably do it in a better way. That I agree with. So baseball is the one sport where you can do this. But if you have robot umps in baseball, how does that affect this call, though? Because this is a interference. This is a human element call, so nothing. They wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
Right. So that aspect is not, but that's kind of back to my point where it's these guys need to be held accountable because that was literally a game-ending decision.
Yeah.
And basically MLB has come out and said that call shouldn't have been made. That game should have continued. So that's a game-altering call that was wrong. And again, it was shocking enough that like all 4 of the umpires gathered together and was not able to make the correct call, because again, if you go back and watch, like, was Vaughn in the vicinity of Gunnar Henderson? Absolutely, but it wasn't like, Henderson's kind of backing up. It wasn't anything that was intentional or anything like that. So for that call to not go and be reversed was kind of shocking, especially in a day and age where instant replay is so prevalent in Major League Baseball now, or running it back to New York and getting the call right, because that's obviously something that can't be challenged as well. Those calls cannot be challenged. So just a really bad situation overall for the White Sox. Because, by the way, the White Sox are going to lose enough games, and you don't need to pile on more. They're going to lose enough games on their own.
The bottom line is just getting it right. Right?
Yeah.
So and every sport has its holes with that. Like, if you watched the Friday night game 2, Mavericks-Timberwolves, there was a ball that originally was called Minnesota ball off of Kyrie, but it actually went off the Wolves, so they had to go back and review it and say, oh, we got to give it to Dallas, even though Kyrie clearly fouled Jaden McDaniels. But you can't call a foul, so you got to just get it right, get the call right.
And that pass by Anthony Edwards near the end of that game there, kind of a tide changer there.
The fans.
We're going to talk more about that in the next segment here. We're going to talk all NBA with Julian. What's going on here? 2-0 in both series here. We'll talk more about that when we return. Welcome back to the Sweat. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow here for the next 2 hours or so. Going to be talking some
Hour
NBA.
45.
Hour 45, yeah. We're going to be talking some
knocked the segment
NBA in this segment here. Lots to talk about here, despite only 2 series really remaining in the NBA here. But let's start off here with what we saw last night, Julian. Dallas takes a 2-0 lead on the series here. Luka with that step back 3-pointer with the remaining 3 seconds in that game to seal it for Dallas. Now this series heads to Dallas now with that 2-0 lead. Look at the series lines here. Obviously, as you'd expect, Dallas massive favorites here, minus 525 on the series line. Timberwolves at plus 400. Kind of surprised here, Anthony Edwards, though, really kind of very selective with his shot selection here. Obviously, at that errant pass near the end of the game, 12 seconds remaining, really kind of shifted the tide here in Dallas's favor. Just give me your overall reaction here. Are you surprised that this is 2-0 in favor of Dallas going to Dallas, or that's kind of what you were looking at?
No, I'm surprised. I thought that Minnesota defensively would have some answers in this series. They have some good matchups. They have McDaniels to throw on Luka. And we saw, like, the way that they can clamp down. That was a wild roller coaster series against Denver. But you're down 20 points in the fourth quarter on the road against the defending champs. If you can clamp down like that defensively and hold the Nuggets to 37 second-half points and come back and win that game with Anthony Edwards only having 16 points, he hasn't really had a good game since. That shows that you can play with anybody. But they have not been executing in crunch time at all. These fourth quarters, they've been good games, but when it comes down to it, Dallas has been making the plays down the stretch. That experience, Luka's played in Western Conference Finals before. Kyrie's obviously played in NBA Finals before and won an NBA Finals before. And that experience has really been showing. So both games have been in crunch time. Dallas wins crunch time of both games. They're up 2-0 on the road. Dallas should win the series. Not a hot take. They're coming home 2-0. Sure. But we just saw a really weird series from Minnesota where they took the first 2 on the road, and it took them 7 to win it, and they were down 20, like I said, in the third quarter on the road. So if Dallas lets their guard down, they can still be in trouble just given the way that the Wolves defend.
Dallas minus 155, 3.5-point favorites at home in that game for tomorrow. Game total in this one's 208.5. I mean, is this going to be a 3-0 series lead for Dallas after we see this game tomorrow?
Feels like it. Just the way that Dallas has controlled crunch time, really. Like, if the Wolves are going to win this, they're going to have to, have to be blowing this game out in the fourth quarter, because they were up 18 in the first half in this game. They had a lead going into the fourth quarter, and once again, Dallas took control in crunch time. So I like what the Mavericks are doing. They've got, the backcourt can do whatever it has to do. They can find the matchups they need to find. Those guys can score. But when, Gafford and Lively and some of those other guys are playing as well as they are, it makes things tough on Minnesota. So I haven't bet game 3 yet. I am leaning with laying the 3.5 with the Mavericks, just because Minnesota really has to build a lead, and it's going to have to be in a road game to, prevent themselves from coming undone late in the fourth quarter, it seems like. Now, that said, like, Dallas hasn't been the best home team, so, Dallas is a good road team. It's a decent spot for the Wolves to get a game 3 on the road, but not necessarily a comfortable spot for a less experienced team.
Does the road to victory have to go through Anthony Edwards for Minnesota to come back?
Probably, because they were barely in control of that game last night and getting nothing from both Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. If Anthony Edwards is having a better game, they probably win at least one of those first 2 games if Edwards could have been a little better. So it just puts into perspective the narrative that we've had and how quick things change and the overreactions of all this stuff with the Anthony Edwards Jordan comps, and then, well, now he's playing like he's 22 and just kind of on a learning curve. He's still going to be a great player, but he can't just go out there and do it every night like he was necessarily in some of those games he had against Denver, some of those games he had against Phoenix. There's going to be a learning curve. And Jason Tatum, who's 26, who a lot of people are making the comps with, still had, I think, his worst playoff game in Game 2 since at least establishing himself as an All-NBA player.
Let's talk about that Celtics game, too. Celtics at Pacers tonight. Celtics 7-point road favorites in this one, minus 270 on the money line. Everyone's saying the series is over. The books are saying the series is over. Yeah. Minus 8,000 on the series spread there for the Celtics. They've won both of these games now by 5 points and 16 points. And then, of course, major injury on the Pacers side.
Yeah, so this is the first time that the Celtics have taken a 2-0 lead with home court in a series since round 1 against the Hawks last year. Second round, Harden came in and stole game 1 for the Sixers without Embiid. That was 1-1. East Final, Miami comes in, takes the first 2 in a series. They go up 3-0 before that game 7 happened. First round this year, Miami takes game 2 by double digits. Second round, Cleveland takes game 2 by double digits. This is the first time in a long time the Celtics have actually held serve on home court. And now they're going, I know the Pacers have been good on the road, but Halliburton's dinged up with the hamstring, which is a lingering injury that cost him time earlier in the year.
I think it's important to know, too, it's not a strain. It's just soreness. But it's still enough that he might miss tonight.
I'm curious if he needed to miss the end of Game 2, because he sat out Game 2, but Rick Carlisle really waved the white flag in that game and was playing the bench with like 10 minutes to go. So was that just rest, or was he really out? You can tag him questionable, obviously, and they probably know if he's going to give it a go and how effective he's going to be able to be. But the Celtics are in complete control of this series, really. Game 1 is the game they should have lost. They didn't, and now they're up 2-0 going on the road, where, again, the Pacers are a good home team. The Celtics are an excellent road team. So I think the Celtics, and they won by 16 with Tatum giving a brutal performance in that game, too. Tatum's been better for them on the road. I would lay the 7 with the Celtics tonight. I think that they're going to get it done in Indy, and I think Halliburton's injury creates an interesting conversation for some props on the Indy side.
Do you think that this line moves if Halliburton doesn't play, if he's officially ruled out on this year? Obviously, that's likely baked into the line already, but, obviously with so many more additional eyes on this game, more casuals could be in this here. Do you see this line moving when that news comes out? Positive or negative?
I think it has to. So I was guessing that the numbers in Indy would be like 4.5, and it's 7. So it feels like it bakes in the injury a little bit. That said, DraftKings Sportsbook, I give DK Sportsbook credit because they're one of the only places with this, but we do have Halliburton props up.
Okay.
So if his props are up, that means they're planning on him playing, which if he's ruled in, then the number shouldn't budge. If he were to be ruled out, that would suggest the number go up.
Yep.
Which I thought is kind of curious. 7 seems like the no Halliburton or the dinged up Halliburton number.
All right, let's take a look at some finals look-ahead lines here. Now, we're basically going to talk about the Celtics and then who they could potentially facing from the Western Conference. They were minus 280 against the Mavericks yesterday. This morning, it's now minus 255. So minus 280 to 255 from last night to this morning, minus 230 against the Timberwolves. So they're actually bigger favorites if they do end up facing the Mavericks here. Which one would you prefer if you were going to bet one of these series? And B, are you surprised that they're bigger favorites over the Mavericks and the Timberwolves?
No, I'm not surprised that they're bigger favorites over Dallas because that's just how these teams grade out. Like Minnesota could arguably give them a tougher time. Both regular season games went to overtime with the regular season with the home team winning. If you're betting the Celtics in the series, just like you have been all postseason, you got to lay games. They're too big of a price tag. You could probably lay a game and a half with either to win it in 6 or less. But I'll just go ahead. I'm comfortable enough to say that the Wolves don't come back from down 2-0 going to Dallas. And the Celtics aren't losing. So if you want the Celtics to win it all, and the Celtics to win it all are minus 215, you can just go to the exact outcome. Boston to beat Dallas is minus 135. That's a really fair price. You're getting ahead of it, and you're going to need someone to come completely undone to not get that matchup. So you're getting a team that is priced. What did you say the Mavericks price was?
It was 280. It is now 255.
255. Okay, so giving credit to Dallas, but 255 down to 135, and all you need is those two teams to just get there. The Celtics are going to get there.
Yep.
I don't believe in jinxes. They're going to get there. It's just if Dallas can hold on and not choke away this series, you're cutting that price like in half, essentially.
All right, real quick here. It was announced on Thursday Bickerstaff is no longer the Cavaliers head coach. Which job do you think is more attractive, Cavaliers or Lakers?
It's always the Lakers.
Yep.
Unless LeBron wants to go from the Lakers to the Cavs for like the fourth time, then it's going to be the Lakers.
Yeah, we'll talk some NBA draft as we come as the show progresses as well. But we're going to be getting into some MLB bets next with myself. Julian's going to ask me some hard-hitting questions.
Yeah,
Maybe the White Sox will lose again. Maybe we'll have some interference BS call. We'll get to that in just a moment here when the sweat returns with Julian and Steve.
Welcome back to The Sweat. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Thanks for taking your morning and tuning in for some bets with us. Julian, Steve, we're talking baseball. I went 3-1 in baseball last night, Steve. I don't know why I'm not the analyst on this segment.
That usually doesn't happen for you, but congratulations on a unusual profitable day.
Broke the Friday curse. Emerson's been saying fade me on Fridays. 3-1 baseball, 1-0 NBA. How about them apples?
And the one that you lost, I said, was a trap.
Zach Gallen was so cheap at home against the Marlins. I was like, you got to do this, and of course,
No, that was an
the Gallen fun might be over.
Yeah.
But that was last night. Let's talk today. Cubs, Cardinals. Jameson Taillon's been pretty good this season.
Yeah, he has, and going up against someone who has not been so good this season, and Miles Michaelis. The Cardinals are kind of hitting their stride a little bit here, and it's actually getting a little bit of annoying for someone who has completely faded them for the year and usually on a daily basis, but they're 8-2 over their last 10 games. Yet, I do like the Cubs today a lot with Jameson Taillon going up against Miles Michaelis. Jameson Taillon has been great since returning so far this season. He's made 6 starts, 2.20 ERA, which is fantastic. Expected ERA of 3.49. His strikeouts are way down, though. He ended with an 8.1 K9 last year. Right now, he's sitting at around 6. But the good news here, the caveat to this, is that his ground ball rate is way up. He's getting it at about 45% clip right now, compared to just 37 last year. So to compensate for those lack of strikeouts, it's inducing a lot of ground balls, which works out just fine. Then you got Miles Michaelis, whose ERA is approaching 6. He's got an expected ERA of about 5, but both sides of the plate are really hitting him hard at this point here. He's struggling against lefties. He's struggling against righties. He's really not able to get out anybody at this point. Fly balls are way up for him, so this just is a classic situation here where the pitching side is much stronger for the Cubs here. I'm going to side with the Cubs. I think they kind of get back on track here today against the Cardinals.
All right, I'm not a big total bettor, but you got one in Mariners Nationals for us.
I was shocked at this total because this is a really strong pitching matchup, and yet the total for this game is set at 9. I would not be surprised if this ends up falling a little bit here to at least 8.5 or some point. It looks like it's trending that way by how the line is set right now, but if you can get this at 9, I would recommend getting this one now. You got Logan Gilbert going for the Mariners, who's been phenomenal. He's been one of their most consistent pitchers so far this season, 3.20 ERA, expected ERA of 3.44, so he's been right there. He hasn't been getting lucky or anything like that. There's no regression coming. He's been exactly as advertised. Road numbers have been good, and neither side of the plate has been hitting him hard, so that's great there. The Nationals have been okay against the fastball and the slider. Those are the two main pitches that Logan Gilbert throws. They're about league average against those pitches, so nothing really pops out there. Then you got Trevor Williams. If this was last year we were talking about, then maybe I wouldn't be talking about this under. But Trevor Williams has been one of the better stories of the season, and it's likely you probably don't even realize this year. It is just a complete different pitcher from what we saw last year compared to this year. Also, somebody who's getting a ton of ground balls, almost a 50% ground ball rate at this mark here. Right-handed bats have been getting next to nothing against him. 210 WOBA against him for righties. And then we have two of the best teams at hitting the under so far this season. Seattle is hitting the under 59% of their games so far this season. That is the 4th best mark in the league. Washington's at 57%, which is just outside the top 10. So I look at this total here. 9 runs seems like a ton. And by the way, the Nationals bullpen has been phenomenal too as well. So you could take the first 5 under. I have no problem with that. But I think the full game under is also taken a look at as well because of how good these teams have been with the under.
All right, from unders to overs. Like I said, I bet Arizona last night. They got shut out, so naturally you're going to their team total over today.
Yeah, much better matchup here going up against Sixto Sanchez. I've talked about him numerous times here on the show. They've been working him back in the rotation just a few years, just riddled with injuries here, but he's back. He's in the rotation, but he hasn't exactly been good when he's in the rotation here. He's made 5 starts already. 3 of those starts, he's allowed at least 3 runs or more in those starts there. Both sides of the plate giving him a lot of trouble here. Lefties in particular have been a big problem here. 393 WOBA when going up against left-handed bats here. He's probably going to see at least 5 lefties in that Diamondbacks lineup here today, including the first 3 hitters that he's going to face in that first inning there with Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, and Jock Peterson. Diamondbacks got shut out yesterday, which you alluded to here, but they've really been rolling offensively prior to that here. So you talk about the influx of lefties that they can put in this lineup here, going up against Sixto Sanchez. The bullpen is going to be rested because obviously they got a really good start there out of Braxton Garrett. But overall, this Marlins team has just been putrid. Pitching-wise, offensively, they have some of the worst offensive numbers in the league here. I think they're going to go over 4.5 runs here, especially with Sixto Sanchez taking the mound. So give me their team total to go over 4.5 runs.
I do enjoy a good over at Fenway Park when it's going to be a scorcher. It looks like you're doing the same thing with the Red Sox that you're doing with the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, taking the Red Sox go over their team total as well. It's set at 4.5 for this one here, going against the Milwaukee Brewers. We got Colin Ray taking the mound for the Brewers. This is somebody who had a really, really good month of April when you look at his surface numbers here, but there was some definite regression that was coming, and I feel like that's finally come back to bite him here in the month of May. 12 runs allowed over his last 3 starts on 21 hits, and they haven't really been against some tough competition either. He faced the Rockies away from Coors Field. The Oakland Athletics are in there as well, and this is somebody who just essentially throws fastballs. He throws 3 different variations of a fastball, and that's what's been getting him in trouble lately. All of those pitches account for about 69% of the pitches that he throws overall here. Red Sox are a very good fastball hitting team. 370 team WOBA against the 4-seam fastball, which is the primary pitch that Ray likes to hit here. Lefties have also been a big problem here for Colin Ray. 366 WOBA against him so far this season, and 6 of the 7 home runs that they have allowed. You look at this Red Sox lineup here, they can get a bunch of lefties in there. Abreu near the top there. Rafael is going to be in there too as well. There are a lot of good hitting members of this Red Sox team against what Colin Ray likes to throw. So this feels like a good game to get them on the team total there as well. Also, the Brewers bullpen has been really struggling over the past week or so. Didn't have to use too many guys there last night, but I think this is going to be a short start for Ray, so should be able to get into that bullpen early tonight.
All right, you have a prop on a guy named Kerry Carpenter. I didn't know who he is, so I looked him up. He plays for the Detroit Tigers. He was also born in 1997, so there's a chance he hasn't seen the movie Superbad before.
All right, well, we do need to confirm that or not, because if he also hasn't seen Superbad, then I have nothing to do with this guy. Like, if you haven't seen Superbad, then, you need to make a point to watch that movie.
I agree.
But until then, I will take him to go over 1.5 hits run in RBI here today. He has some of the best numbers on that Tigers team against the sinker. 368 WOBA dating back to last season. Going up against Jose Barrios today, whose numbers have always been so much worse against left-handed bats than they are against righties here. He has great numbers across the board when he's facing a right-handed bat. But once you get those lefties up there, that's really been the kryptonite for Jose Barrios, really through the span of his career. You go back a number of years now, compare his splits between left-handed bats and right-handed bats. Lefties has always been the problem here. Carpenter has been a really solid story here for the Tigers so far this season. This is a team that, coming into the year, they had a lot of high expectations. They're kind of struggling at this point here, but he's been one of the lone bright spots here in the month of May. He's hitting .294 overall. What really caught my eye here is in that span, of the 15 hits that he's had, 11 of them have gone for extra bases. He's knocked in 12 over that span. He's scored 11 times over that span. So this feels like a really strong spot to back him here. Going up against Jose Barrios, like I mentioned, has really struggled a lot more against lefties than he has righties. So I like him to go over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs.
All right. You got another prop here. It's Bobby Witt. Over 1.5 total bases. He's been really good. Royals have been really good. Is it that simple?
I mean, I'm really excited about the Royals.
Me too.
We talked about this a while ago back on the show. I mean, even
just need
dating
the
back
stupid
to
Guardians
December.
to start losing.
The Guardians are pissing me off, man. Like I feel really good about where the Royals are at because when we talked about them, I like them to win the division. They were 14-1 to win the division when I talked about it here. I think it's 2-1 at this point now to win the division. But the Guardians just keep hanging around. Both of those teams right now are on a 7-game winning streak.
Yeah.
That's so absurd and annoying when you have a future for the team that's behind in that division right now. But yeah, going back to Bobby Witt Jr., over 1.5 bases here against Aaron Savali. Aaron Savali is someone who throws a cutter. That is the primary pitch pitch here. Bobby Witt Jr. absolutely crushing this pitch dating back to last year. 441 WARBA against that pitch here. Ton of power against that pitch in particular as well. I mean, he has just been absolutely raking at this point. He's someone to maybe even look at for MVP vote if you're getting into that point there. I'm not there yet. I usually try to wait till at least midsummer until I really start hammering down those awards bets here. But Bobby Witt Jr., at least for today, over 1.5 bases. This is something he's done a number of times. Almost half of the entire season he's gone over 1.5 bases here. So this should be a strong spot for him today.
All right, real quick. Phillies are 36-16 against the first 5 this season. I'm on it again today. Phillies first 5. Might look at the Royals too, just because the Royals.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot. I think the
really
Royals too as well. And I think the Red Sox too. Nick Pivetta on the mound here for the Brewers in that first 5.
The producers are already Googling, has Kerry Carpenter seen Superbad? I doubt we are going to get any hits on that, but we will find out. My 4-year-old son, Pierce, loves race cars. On the other side of the break, Steve's going to talk with a much older man named Pierce about race cars.
Oh, can't wait.
first I parked it there because I figured Kyle would, do something similar. And then just told Randall that he could tell Kyle I'll see him afterwards over the radio. Said there's no tunnel here, I can't leave. So I'll be here on the race alert.
Welcome back to the sweat. How about that? If racing is going to have that type of drama, I mean, I'm in. I will watch that. Pierce Dietrich is going to join the show. Pierce, I know you're a big wrestling guy. I'm a big wrestling guy. I mean, that's the stuff that gets me into it. What were your thoughts about that? That was like an actual, that was better than a baseball fight.
Yeah, Stenhouse got wrecked on lap 2, and because North Wilkesboro is an old track, you can't get out of the track. There's not a tunnel to exit, so he was stuck there for the entire race. Probably got a little more angry, and punched Kyle Busch like a lot of people wish they would have done over the years. Good punch, good technique. Not an MMA guy, but he has competed in American Ninja Warrior.
Well, I'll say a good stat there. Do you think he's seen Superbad?
What was that?
Do you think he's seen the movie Superbad?
I guess.
That's just a topic of discussion on the show. Have you seen Superbad?
Yes.
Okay, good. We'll keep you on the show. For that, now that we've gotten through that, let's talk about the Coca-Cola 600 that's coming up here. One of the biggest racing weekends of the year, obviously, Pierce here. This one is taking place in Charlotte. Kind of just give us the lay of the land here. Like, what type of driver are we looking for here? What's the type of track that we're looking at? Like, just kind of give people the lay of the land here before they make their bets or make their daily fantasy lineups.
Charlotte's an intermediate track. These tracks have produced the best racing in 2024. This track's a little more unique in that it's not a very wide track, so we get a lot more volatility, cautions, wrecks, and then you do that for 600 miles. You're going to have even more volatility, so it should be a pretty exciting race. That being said, the elite drivers in the top cars will not really be as affected by the wrecks and the spins. So the top cars will be the top cars, but we should see some surprises. Drivers that benefit from attrition and cautions, lucky dogs, and guys that you might not expect to get in the top 10 just surviving the race and the carnage.
So what you're saying is we're probably not going to see any post-race fights after this race tomorrow.
No, we probably won't, considering NASCAR slapped a $75,000 fine on Stenhouse after they promoted it all week and celebrated the fight, then $75,000. Ouch.
Okay, so I'm back out on racing for now. Let's talk about some daily fantasy lineups for now here if you're going to build your lineup for this race here. Hamlin is the odds-on favorite on DraftKings Sportsbook to win this here, filed closely by Larson. Are any of those two guys going to make your lineup? They're one of the two of the most expensive racers in this field.
Yeah, you got to go with Larson. And there's just the giant narrative of him running the Indy 500. Then he's going to jump on a jet, fly from Indiana over to Charlotte, and then run 600 more miles. It's a tall task, but if anyone could do it, it's him. He's the best driver possibly ever. So you got to root for that narrative. And it's not just the narrative. Statistically, he's been one of the best drivers. The sports book's on it. They know what's up. I think Larson is, the heart kind of leans that way, but sometimes it works.
And then when you're looking for value here too as well, like what are some names that pop up as a value play here? Are you looking for guys that are like starting way back so they can kind of gain those positions? What are you looking at here for value plays?
Well, it's going to be Stenhouse, and it's not just because
he's a bad boy.
Out Kyle Busch. You look at what Stenhouse has done at Charlotte. Now, it seems counterintuitive because Ricky Stenhouse, affectionately known as Recky Spinhouse, has a propensity to wreck in a race where we see lots of wrecking, but that doesn't happen for him in the Coca-Cola 600. You look at the last 6 Coke 600s, he's got a top 15 finish in 5, 4 top 10s. He likes this race. He does really well in it. And, hey, you got the narrative right behind him as well with, $75,000. He's not the richest driver in the world. He's probably pretty motivated.
Is that a lot for like a NASCAR driver? Like, I don't know what they get paid, so I have no idea. Is that a lot?
Yeah, it is. These guys don't make a lot of money anymore.
Okay. Neither do any of us. All right, let's talk about a bet here to win this race. Like I mentioned, Hamlin and Larson are the top 2 favorites here. Then a fairly wide gap after that. Byron's at 8-1, Reddick's 850. Who do you like to win this one here?
Yeah, you can go down to a Byron or even a possibly Blaney. But again, I'm going to roll with the storyline that we all want to see, and that's Kyle Larson. performing the feat of 1,100 miles. And again, statistically, he's been one of the best. You go back to 2021. I know this is not necessarily a DFS take, but he scored 158 fantasy points, which means he pretty much controlled the entire race of the Coca-Cola 600 in 2021. He's been great this season. He's probably going to be a little bit worn out, but it's really nothing for the guy. He races 5 to 6 days a week. He's on dirt tracks. He's at IndyCar. It's been a crazy month. And how about he closes it out with this historic win?
I'm going to spring this on you too real quick here. Is there anybody you like for like a top 5 bet here as well? Because obviously the odds are a lot shorter, but is there anybody that's kind of caught your eye, maybe bring some value here, or is it just kind of, the field is almost set as it is?
Yeah, I mean, don't rule out that Stenhouse pick. As I mentioned before, we're going to get plenty of cautions, and that means you're going to reset the field often and have all these restarts. So he may not have the best car, but if he restarts on the third row with 3 laps left, he's definitely capable of sneaking away at the top 5. And really, anybody on the board can do that with the volatility of this race.
All right, let's step over to F1 here and what we got the race over at Monaco. What do we need to know about this track here? I believe the practice runs were this morning, if I'm not mistaken. Those already took place.
Yeah, they had their third practice, and then they'll qualify later this afternoon, which is a big deal because qualifying pretty much sets up the race. This racetrack shouldn't exist. It would never be approved today. A, because it's dangerous. B, because it just doesn't provide very good racing. There won't be any passing. So the driver that wins the pole wins the race. But it's a spectacle. It's a special event. The richest people on planet Earth will be there watching on their yachts. It may not be the greatest race ever. So, 9 a.m. tomorrow or Sunday morning, pop open a mimosa and just enjoy the pageant.
Yeah, I was going to have you elaborate on that a little bit. This is a track that has been highly criticized for the past few years, yes?
Yeah, the drivers don't like it. The fans don't necessarily appreciate the racing, but it's Memorial Day weekend. It's a special racing holiday. And like I said, if the richest people on planet Earth put it on their calendar, this thing isn't going away anytime soon.
Well, just like it looks like the Vegas thing's not going away either, and that was just a massive headache for everybody when F1 came around. And those are expensive people because the Wynn was sold out, and if you got money, you're staying at the Wynn, baby. Let's talk about the winner for this one here. So Verstappen's actually plus money for this one. He's plus 225. It's Charles Leclerc who is the odds-on winner for this one at minus 140. Which direction are you going for the winner of this one here?
Again, it's going to come down to whoever wins qualifying. So if you want to put in the bet before qualifying, then you're going to get your better odds because those are going to shift once that comes through. I think Verstappen is definitely the safe pick. He's won 9 poles in a row, which is a record. So I imagine he's going to win another, then thus win the race. But if you want to go with the heart, then Charles Leclerc from Monaco, hometown Monte Carlo guy. Everybody's been rooting for him to get this win. Has never been able to accomplish it. So if you want to go with passion and excitement and you've had too many mimosas or whatever you like to drink at 9 a.m. in America, then Leclerc is going to be that option.
Is there really any value in taking anybody else here, or is it really just down to these two?
Yeah, I mean, you could put the McLarens in, but McLaren's had most of its speed on pace, not necessarily on qualifying. And again, it's all about qualifying. So although McLaren and Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are running really well, it's just not a pace race.
And before I ask you the next question, what would you watch this race on? Like a super yacht? Where are you going to watch this race?
I think I would be in one of the Monte Carlo casinos, probably.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I just want to get your thoughts too, if you have any here, on any of the other upcoming bets here. Obviously, Indy 500 is going to be coming up here. Any early thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, Indy 500. Again, we're rooting for the double with Kyle Larson. We want to see him win both of these races. I mean, if he wins one, that's great. But if he wins two, it'll be one of the greatest racing achievements of all time. Just running the 1,100 miles is quite an accomplishment. And what he's already done is pretty amazing. But he's got a chance. Qualified 5th. He's got the car. He's got the talent. He's definitely has an opportunity. The safer bet's going to be Joseph Newgarden, who's the best IndyCar oval driver. If you want to take a little bit of a longer shot guy, Takuma Sato at plus 3,000. This is the only race he runs, but he has won this thing he's won this twice before. So he likes Indy 500. There's your long shot bet.
All right, and then we'll end it off with here. Obviously, NASCAR Cup Series, you can take the winner of that one there. Larson is the overall favorite of plus 380. Have you looked at this at all, or do you have any opinions on this one?
Yeah, go with Larson. Hamlin's probably the safer bet considering he's not running 1,100 miles on Sunday.
Plus
and
450,
has
yep.
statistically been a little better.
All right, Pierce. And then, hey, Double or Nothing's tomorrow. Are you excited for Double or Nothing, AEW?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we can get a backstage fight there as well.
Absolutely. All right, this is going to conclude the first hour of the Sweat here. Pierce Dietrich, thanks for coming on. We're going to bring Nick Fryer on board next. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to The Sweat. Thank you for spending your Saturday holiday weekend morning tuning in, going over some bets with us here on VSiN on DraftKings Network. Time for MLB Cover the Bases. Julian, Steve, we're back, and we are now joined by a guy that, per Google, played college baseball. His name's Nick Fryer, and there's Steve getting hit in the face with cake all over the screen.
Yes. Who doesn't love this moment? It's one of my favorite moments in all of DraftKings history.
Why is that?
Because you look like an idiot.
There's a lot of moments in DraftKings history where Steve looks like an idiot.
Right, but this can't be spun, Julian. That's the whole thing. Like, there's no question. Like, you got hit in the face with a cake. It's amazing. I actually, you know what? The fact that I don't have a poster in my apartment yet is actually kind of disappointing on my part.
Well,
real quick, my favorite part of this is obviously Steve Aoki hit Steve Buchanan in the face with a cake, and then Steve Buchanan met Steve Aoki again, and Steve Aoki had no recollection of caking Steve in the face. He was just another guy.
He does this on like a daily basis.
But you guys met like in a DraftKings office to like film a bit, and he was like, yeah, sure, I remember you.
No, he remembered.
All right,
here's Steve. That's so sad.
First base.
Hey, no. This guy's saying that's so sad. You want to pull up something sad? Let's get Nick's college baseball stats up there.
We've been Googling a lot of things all show. I'm sure the producers will Google it.
Anyways, how's baseball looking?
First base. Phillies, they're a team that Steve's been talking about all year. They're a team that I actually got on at plus 185 to win the division. They're on a heater, best team in the majors. They're 6 games up on the Braves in the East. Still, I checked this yesterday before I even know this was going to be in the segment. What is Philly to win the division? Still just minus 120.
Yeah.
Braves, they're hanging around, rough stretch. They're minus 105. Strider injury, obviously a huge swing in the division. Can the Phillies sustain it all season? Because I think Philly minus 120 is still a good bet right now if you don't have it.
It's crazy that it's only still minus 120 at this point. And if you've been watching the show, if you're a loyal viewer, thank you. But when the Strider injury came out, I immediately said, you got to jump on the Phillies now. This is the time to jump on the Phillies because that is such a massive injury for the Braves. And then you look at this schedule, and this is not the Phillies' fault. This is the schedule they were given. They have only played 6 games against teams above 500. It is May 25th. They've only played 6 games against teams above 500. Next series.
Is that bad?
Huh?
So they're going to play a bunch of hard games now.
Let me finish. Let me do the analyzing here.
You just did some analyzing, and then I had a question.
Next series against the Giants, maybe they'll be over 500
Are Bonita
at this
Fish
point.
big?
Cardinals, after that, likely won't be over 500. And then next month, so here's your answer.
Okay.
Next month, they only have 9 games against teams who are currently 500 right now.
So they just don't play anybody good all year?
That's not their fault. But I mean, like...
Well, why don't they... But the new schedule is everybody plays everybody. When do they play anybody?
Well, I think the real story here is that most of the
They
MLB
just play
teams...
the Braves 30 times in September?
are horrible. No, but they play everybody evenly. It's a flat schedule. But like, so even if the Phillies have a harder schedule near the end of the year, they could have such a lead against the Braves already that it's a number that they can't come back with. The Braves are running into the situation where they've been using a lot of key guys in that rotation that could not perform. Chris Sale's been phenomenal. Right, Chris Sale has been everything they could have hoped for and more. But you still got like Lopez, Fried's been good lately, but can he sustain that and stay healthy? There's a lot more question marks on the Braves than there are the Phillies right now. With the schedule that they've benefited from having, they're just absolutely raking right now.
So we'll put it this way with Steve's schedule comment. If you bet him minus 120 now, with the way the schedule falls, that number's at least going to grow throughout the course of the season before the games get a little bit tougher. Nick, is it the Phillies for you in this division?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Like, you're going to lose that value pretty quickly because I didn't even realize the strength of schedule bit like going into May. I knew what we've seen so far, and they've had the easiest schedule. And to an extent, yes, that is a knock on what they've done so far. But at the same time, guys, I look at it, it's like, well, this is how you end up winning a division. This is what makes a difference. You take care of business in these games against the bad teams. And when you're winning 75% of those games, I would imagine over the course of the entirety of a season, good teams that win divisions are winning somewhere around on that percentage of games. So I understand like the concern because look, the Braves are still a good team. You look at where like you have a guy like Matt Olson who's still underperforming. You've got injuries and everything. It's definitely legitimate to be concerned about like, oh, can the Braves still come back? Or if you're a Braves fan, don't necessarily give up on them winning the division. But at the same time, it's like the Phillies are taking care of business in the games they're supposed to win. And also, I would think, a little mental warfare. Steve kind of alluded to it in some capacity where if the Phillies get such a sizable lead, then maybe the Braves are like, well, we're just going to win. We're going to get the wild card and we'll do some damage there because postseason, what does it matter? And the Phillies, too, will probably continue to overperform because they have this confidence, whether or not it's deserved, because they're just, pulverizing other teams.
All right, well, the Phillies have been so dominant that they have two dudes at the top of the board for the NL Cy Young. Wheeler is 3-1, Suarez is 5-1, and Imanaga's in there at 4-1. What guys, Nick, we'll start with you this time. What guys do you think are most likely to be in the conversation at the end of the year? I think this is difficult to talk about short shots in May because if I'm betting any baseball future, really, at this point, I want a pretty big price tag on it.
Yeah, for sure. And when I look at these three guys, it's really interesting because Wheeler is someone who, at plus 300, obviously, maybe you can wait a little bit, see if he, throws in a clunker here or there and get a little extra value. But, he's been as dominant as he has been. And you look at the last two seasons, he's been better in the second half, both seasons. So of this bunch, I do think, there's a reason that he's the leader in the odds right now. And because when you look at Ranger Suarez, I can't help but you're reminded when I see that 9-0 record of Ubaldo Jimenez in 2010 when he had that crazy 15-1 start and then somehow he didn't end up winning the Cy Young. Like they're not the same pitcher in any capacity. One guy didn't have to deal with Coors Field, but is that sustainable? If you think that what Ranger Suarez is doing right now is sustainable, if you think he can maintain an ERA in the low 2 range, I know he's below that right now, but it's going to balloon a little bit. I would think he will be my pick here because with Shota Imanaga, I just, how's he going to look in the second half? And it's what it comes down to with any of these guys at this stage, because it is very much a second half award. Not that the first half doesn't matter at all, but it's just we've seen plenty of guys over the years who aren't all-stars and then they end up winning the Cy Young. And right now, all these guys are on pace to be all-stars, but can they maintain it over the second half of the season? There's only one guy in this bunch who's proven that he can, and that's Zach Wheeler.
I don't know why, Steve, I would have been crazy enough to get a preseason ticket on Chris Sale, but I really wish I had one, and he's down to 8-1, and he's holding up. He probably won't hold up for the year, but he's been awesome, and he's at 8-1 now.
He's been awesome. I don't think he's going to hold up for the year. I don't think Suarez is going to hold up for the year either. Suarez is just like, this is so off base for him. Like, he's a fine pitcher. He's not this elite, 1A starter that he's been pitching right now. Like, if there's any value on the board right now that I would jump on, and again, I'm someone who doesn't do this very early, but Dylan Cease is at 15-1. Like, this is somebody who easily could have won this award 2 years ago. Numbers are great across the board, 3.05 ERA, expected ERA of 3.14, so he's right there. I think Cease, if he continues the way that he's been pitching, and we've seen this before from him, this isn't unusual for him like it is for Suarez. I think Cease at 15-1 could be someone that you could be like, wow, that was some pretty good odds back in the end of May.
Paul Skeens, 60-1. There
Not
you go.
happening.
All right, we're rounding the bases, third base. Let's pick up the pace. We got 3.5 minutes in the segment. Steve Soto, he's dominating for the Yankees. Are the poor little small market Yankees going to pay Juan Soto?
I mean, they should be. But I don't know if Soto's going to just take that first offer, which is, what the Yankees have the opportunity to do. He should be going out there and seeing what he can get. Like, if you take some of the baseline for some of the guys out there, like, is he going to exceed Trout at $426 million? I don't know if that's going to happen, but he should be getting more than Judge, who just got $360 million for 10 years at 30 years old when he signed that contract here. So I'm thinking he's like in the range of like what Harper got at 26 when he got that $330 million deal. So like Soto, 10 years, 375, I think sounds, pretty realistic, but he needs to go out there. I know the Yankees should sign him. He is like a Yankees hitter. Like, you see what he's doing on that team, but I feel like he needs to go out there, test the free agent market, because if this past offseason indicates anything, teams will overpay by money and years. Hello, Xander Bogaerts. So I think he should go out there, test the market, but the Yankees are going to do everything they can to re-sign him.
Anything to add, Nick?
Bogart's catching strays right now, man. I blame San Diego on that. They have been a mess for a little while now. But yeah, when you look at the Yankees, my big thing is like, yeah, it's tough when you have the big contract of Aaron Judge and everything, all the other money that they've spent there. But at the same time, it's like, who's going to weep for the Yankees? Like, pay the guy. Like, he's an amazing talent, and he's like you said, Steve, he's exactly the kind of hitter that you need in that little Cracker Jack box in Yankee Stadium. He's perfect for that field. So yes, you have to pay him for the Yankees. If you don't, I mean, I just don't know how the fans are going to be able to deal with Hal Steinbrenner much longer.
If they do, though, they would have to overpay for him to not reach the market. And I think that's going to, and I don't disagree, but I think that's what it would take to sign him.
This is what happens when you don't develop young talent on your own.
All right, O'Neal Cruz, a dude that I bet before the season to lead the majors in home runs. I don't think we're going to get that, but he had 3 balls with exit velocities of over 115 miles per hour, 2 of them over 120. No player has won over 120 this year. How soon is he going to be in the MVP conversation, or how soon is he going to cash me a ticket to lead the majors in home runs?
I would think you have a better chance of cashing that home run ticket before you get to the MVP talk. I don't think he's going to be an MVP talker. I think this is someone who's going to be a fine player. I don't think he's going to be an MVP caliber player. Strikeout rate way too high. You know, not a big base stealer, not a big batting average guy. Not that I'm a big batting average guy either, but like the numbers are fine. They're not elite. So I think I don't know if he's ever going to get there, but at least as of right now, great player. I don't think he's an elite player.
Nick?
He's not even the most, he's not even the best Cruz in his division. So, no. Yeah, no, I'm good on O'Neal's a nice player. He's exciting. He's going to be talented, but give me Ellie De La Cruz for MVP first.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right. We made it around the bases successfully. On the other side of the break, we are going to go back to basketball. We're going to talk more of this Mavericks and T-Wolves series. There we go. A man did this to you, Steven. He doesn't even have the decency to remember just smashing a cake over your face. You did all that for nothing.
Thanks.
Sweat. We'll be right back on the other side of the break.
Welcome back to The Sweat. Thanks for joining us here on this Memorial Day weekend. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow talking about the big game, Mavericks and Timberwolves. Game 3, Timberwolves trying to avoid a 3-1 series deficit here. Julian, obviously the Mavericks were able to take down Game 2 there by a score of 109-108 in that one game. Dallas home favorites here once again. Mavericks, by the way, 27-17 against the spread when favored by 3 points or more. How are you feeling about this game here?
It's hard not to like Dallas at this point, but again, it was hard not to like Minnesota when they were up 2-0 on Denver and they were coming home, and Game 3 didn't go their way, nor did Game 4. It obviously evened it out. That was a really weird series. So is Minnesota going to find itself in a really weird series yet again against a more experienced team? Except this time they're fighting from down 2-0 rather than having the lead. The reason I think this one goes different, the Wolves kind of came undone as that series went on against Denver. They were just able to correct themselves.
Yep.
This time they really have to play from behind. And I think they're going to have a hard time doing that against this Mavericks team, against guys with closers in Luka and Kyrie, that the Mavericks have just dominated not just the fourth quarter, but crunch time of these games and made all the big plays, whereas the younger Wolves team, Anthony Edwards, having such a good postseason, but massive turnovers late in games. Dallas has just been buttoned up during crunch time, and, these games have been tighter than the 3.5-point spread in this game, but I would lay it with Dallas coming home in this game if I do wind up playing it.
I mean, is there really an answer for Luka defensively from the Wolves side right now?
Jaden McDaniels is the best answer, and he's a guy that they try to throw on him and can do as good a job as anyone at limiting. But again, you see the end of Game 2. Crunch time. When you need to get the switch, you got the switch you wanted, and he made the shot that he wanted to make, or he took the shot that he wanted to take.
Yep.
Went in. So, again, I do think it's funny that to win a playoff game on the line, you are trying to get Luka Doncic switched onto the Defensive Player of the Year so that the Defensive Player of the Year can guard him. It's just kind of ironic. But, yeah, when it gets to crunch time, Dallas is getting the matchups it wants. And that's kind of been the whole difference in the series in a couple coin flip games.
Let's talk about some props you can take in this game as well. I want to kind of focus on the Anthony Edwards point prop, if we may here. Like I mentioned, 5 for 17 in that Game 2 there. Majority of the points really came from the free throw line. But he said this after the game. He said, I'm turning down a lot of shots, especially in the mid-range. I'm just making the right play. Maybe the right play might be to just shoot it.
Yeah, I think he's right. He's knocked down a lot of mid-range throughout the season, throughout this postseason. I will say, you see the point prop trickling down. It's been as high as 29.5 throughout the postseason.
Under in both games, correct?
Yeah. He's been poor for 3-4 games now.
Yep.
Again, it's been as high as 29.5 this postseason. You're seeing 25.5. He's kind of catching some criticism. A guy that he's getting a lot of comps to, Jason Tatum. Tatum's kind of a player that when he has bad games and the point prop trickles down, there's a narrative going against him, that's kind of a spot you want to go to the over. I think at 25.5, I'm not looking under, given the narrative on Anthony Edwards right now. I know he's going on the road, but this is a game that it would be over or pass on Edwards, regardless of who you like in the game, really.
So not necessarily a player prop. Is there any other bets you like in this game? Like I know like the Celtics, you were big on the first quarter lines there. Is there anything in particular for this game here that you like?
Full game Dallas. I'm not going to break it down into quarters or halves for this one. I would lay it for the game or nothing because, again, the quarter I want to target with them is the fourth. That's where they've had their entire edge in the series, really. Couple players of note. Naz Reid obviously got red hot in Game 2, but he went over his point prop in Game 1 and hit the alt of 15+ in that Game 2. So I think that he's worth a look. It's up to 11.5 with plus money. Role players going on the road, you want to be a little bit more careful. But he's been really awesome. He took crunch time minutes away from Karl Anthony Towns last game. And then Derek Lively. Both centers have really been good for Dallas, but Derek Lively has been awesome in this series. Game 1, 9 points and 11 rebounds. Game 2, 14 points and 9 rebounds. He's 10 of 10 from the field in the series. Now, obviously, that's not sustainable, but it's also not like he's shooting shots. He's basically just catching alley-oops from Luka and Kyrie, so he's going to continue to make a bulk of them. I think he's a guy on the points, rebounds, whichever way you want to look at that. And he's passing well. He has 5 assists in the series. So whichever combo you want to look at on a guy like Derek Lively, maybe he adds a little more juice coming home too. We just talked about role players on the road versus at home. I think Lively should have a good Game 3 at home.
Let's focus on the NBA draft here. It's going to be coming up about a month from now, I think it is.
Yep.
At this point, really weak field overall. Kind of feels like an international draft, if anything. The homegrown talent, at least in the top 5, is a lot of it coming from international waters, I guess you could say here. Obviously, Atlanta has the top pick here, jumping up way in the order here, followed by Washington, Houston, San Antonio, and the Pistons. But it feels like the talk about this is, of course, about Bronny James. And there has just been some talk, maybe he's going to go first overall, which is ridiculous because also, when we get that type of news, but also when you go on DraftKings Sportsbook, his average draft position is set at 39.5 with minus 160 to the over at this point here. Do you have any thoughts on the draft overall here? Or is the Bronny James thing just kind of clouding everything here because you're almost not hearing about anybody else except him?
Yeah, it's the perfect draft for Bronny James to get the spotlight on him.
Yeah.
Because when we're debating whether Alexander Sarr or Zachary Reister is going to go number 1 overall, and nobody around here, I think that's how you say him, and nobody around here has seen much of them play, then, hey, let's just talk about Bronny James. But like you said, when you got a minus 160 to the over on his draft prop, now I would go under. I think somebody is going to take a chance on him because of who he is and what he might come with. But if there was if this number 1 talk was anything other than just absolute smoke to have a talking point, LeBron James Jr. would not be 200 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook to go 1 overall. We could all just bet that and take the summer off and do fun things and buy our boats and go fishing and have some beers and sit back all summer because there's 200 to 1 just sitting there. So it's not realistic. It's not going to happen. What a team may do is reach on him in the teens, the 20s, and say, number 1, we feel like we have a location where his dad might want to come join us for a year. And anything, even if you don't win, even if you make the second round of the playoffs, the boost that you get in sales, tickets, merchandise, whatever, from having LeBron James for a year is there. And then number 2, maybe LeBron James Jr. is a late bloomer or something and develops well or has a growth spurt or whatever, and becomes a much better prospect than he grades out as right now. But as it stands, 6'1", 2 guards that don't really have the ability to play point and aren't, big-time scorers, they just don't exist in the NBA, so he's going to have to really find his way.
So we had this report from Shams yesterday. Phoenix Suns will conduct a workout with Bronny James ahead of the June draft. Sources say Phoenix has the 22nd pick overall, and he is among several players in consideration. On DraftKings Sportsbook, they are 10 to 1 to draft Bronny James here. But I feel like we've run into this situation before where these reports kind of come out, the market shifts in one way or another, and that obviously doesn't end up taking place here. Obviously, the NFL draft is very famous for stuff like this here. I feel like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here, I feel like we've had this conversation where we were joking that LeBron would never end his career in Phoenix. Was that something that you said? I feel like specifically you pointed that out. Utah. No, that was it. You're right. It was Utah.
I don't know. That would just be ridiculous. First of all, the under 39.5 would cash. But if the Suns took him 22 and then LeBron went to Phoenix, after the debacle of getting swept out the Suns just had, are you really going to have Beal, Durant, Booker, and LeBron? That just doesn't seem realistic to me.
Yep.
And the heat that LeBron and Durant would catch for teaming up at this stage would be a lot as well. But the point of the Shams tweet that I'm seeing is that Bronny James is going to be very selective with where he works out, which is normally something players in a position of power have. He doesn't have that draft stock power, but everything about everything else about him with just who he is gives him this ability to treat his draft stock like he's a much more polished player right now than he is.
And then real quick here, we're just going to talk about, obviously, the free agent market's going to be coming up in a couple months as well. Is there anybody in particular you would like to see move to a different team or anything like that? Or
I don't hate LeBron's 7-1 to go back to the Cavs.
Okay.
I don't hate it. I think there's a better chance that he could be on the move.
Does that hinder on the coaching change, though?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I don't think Klay Thompson is going back to the Warriors, which they're a short -150 favorite, but I would look at some other teams for Klay Thompson. And really quick, first overall pick, Stephon Castle from UConn. We got a wide open field. Stephon Castle from UConn, really polished player. 50-1 on him, worth a little dart throw.
All right, we're going to continue on with the sweat here on this Memorial Day weekend. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, we'll be right back. talking a lot of NBA playoffs, but the NHL are also in the midst of their playoffs as well. And who better to bring on to talk about that than our fellow Canadian Jeff Ulrich? Look at that handsome dude on the screen there. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, we thought about it, and we decided to have you back. We'll talk about your Oilers in just a second here. We got to get your reaction to what happened here last night between the Panthers and the Rangers. Overtime win there for the Rangers, able to tie up that series there. Gaudreau, the second game winner of the playoffs, by the way, here. But despite that, Panthers still minus 165 on the series line against the Rangers, who are plus 145. Any change of thought here on this series now that it's all evened up?
I mean, a little bit, yeah, because I thought Florida had like a little bit of an edge in game one. They really had the edge with Bobrovsky and net. And I thought you may see Florida pull away a little bit in game two and potentially put the Rangers in a big hole, but it kind of flipped. I thought the Rangers really took it to the Panthers a little bit. They showed me something. They evened the series by playing them sort of even at 5-on-5. And I think that's the big area. The Rangers have the better power play here. And long term, like Bobrovsky and Shesterkin, they've been very equal over the past 10 or 20 games, but Shesterkin probably still has the better upside. So it's a really big thing that not only were the Rangers able to get the win in game two, but that they played them in that manner. It wasn't a lucky win. It wasn't, we got outshot like 40-20 and then got a lucky goal in OT or something. It was a good game by the Rangers. Probably maybe the one of the best games they've played in this playoffs, and they've already played quite a few good games. So yeah, a little bit. I mean, I look at that line now, and the Panthers are all the way down to minus 155 for game three, and it kind of makes you think here. Maybe this series is going to flip a little bit now that the Rangers have put in that effort.
So let me ask you there, on that series line that I mentioned there, is there any interest in maybe taking the Rangers here at plus 145 to win this series?
Yeah, I think that there's two ways you go about it. You just take the Rangers straight up at plus 145, which I think is a really good number. Like I said, I think after watching the game last night, I just don't think that with the series tied 1-1, and I know that Florida has home ice advantage right now, but home ice in the NHL playoffs has not been that big a deal, Steve. Like the road teams have basically just as good a record here at this point. So I just don't think you can put that much weight in it to where you can say that these teams have been pretty equal after two games. And now you're giving me the Rangers at plus 145 just because of home ice. That's just too much for me. I would say that it should be closer to a pick 'em at this point. So yeah, I would definitely lean the Rangers, or I would just go back to them and play them in game three. Potentially, you play the Rangers as underdogs the next two games in Florida and you win once, you're going to profit. So it kind of just, how you want to go about it. Maybe you want to put some on the series line and put some on the game lines. But I definitely am leaning towards the Rangers, as you can probably already tell in game three. I just think that price of plus 130, just a little bit too big for a team that played so that well in game two.
All right, so I won't make you kind of regurgitate what you just said there. So obviously leaning towards the Rangers in the game. What about the total here? It's set at 5.5, but both of these games, total has gone under in both of those games. 3-0 in game one, 2-1 last night. So three goals in both of these games here. Is this total still high at 5.5?
I mean, it's definitely, you can make a case that this total should be set at 5 now, I think. And I think that at 5, it would be interesting to see if people would still play the number. But I would potentially lean towards this series, just seeing a little bit more shooting, a little bit more scoring now that we're back in Florida. I think that the Panthers would potentially come out, try and gain that advantage back 5-on-5. So I'm not necessarily making a play on the total, but the under is now juiced all the way down to minus 130. And right. I'm not really sure if I want to go take a number that low. You're also going to see a lot of action on the under. So if you like the over, you may even be prone to just waiting and see if this number gets to 5 and then take the over at 5 as well. Gives you a little bit extra cushion, but I'm kind of leaning towards the over. I know that sounds strange after the first two games and how well the goalies have played, but I think this series will open up a little bit at some point, and if it's going to, it's probably going to be in one of the next two games in Florida.
All right, let's talk about the game that's going to be taking place here tonight. Your Edmonton Oilers going up against the Dallas Stars here. Dallas is the home favorite here, minus 142 on the money line here, total of 5.5 for this one here. How are you feeling about this one? Because I think it's fair to say that the Oilers were much, much better at home than they were on the road, but they were able to get that road win in game one.
Yeah, it's pretty big for the Oilers just for this series to get that road win, obviously in the first game. And we've seen teams, coming off long layoffs, been really rusty in that game one. I don't think the Stars were necessarily rusty or anything. They just had trouble beating Stuart Skinner. They had trouble with the speed of McDavid and Draisaitl. And it's funny because I think a lot of people were probably discounting the Oilers after they were coming in at that hard 7-game series against Vancouver, but you kind of saw it in game one. Like, the Oilers have the talent advantage. I mean, look who ended up scoring the overtime goal. It was Connor McDavid. And I just can't help thinking that, like, this talent advantage, and with the way that they're getting better goaltending now from Stuart Skinner, does the Oilers just keep rolling here? I mean, the game lines here are exactly the same for game one or for game two as they were for game one. Dallas was minus 142, like basically to the number in game one. So I potentially lean Edmonton here. I'm a little bit more interested in playing props and potentially the over in this one. I thought that the game had a real good chance of going to the over in game one. Just got a few too many saves from Skinner there in regulation, and Ottinger as well. Made some really big saves, but I don't know how long those goalies can hold out. These are elite offenses, elite power plays. And I think that the over tonight, even though it's juiced to 125, is probably where I'd lean. I think if I was making a play on the game line, I would lean the Oilers, maybe even the Oilers in regulation, which you can get at plus 190. I really just think the Oilers' talent is going to win them out in this series, and there's a potential for them to go up 2-0.
What's the best finals matchup that you can see happening right now?
For me personally, I would like to see Rangers and Oilers. There's a couple reasons why. Obviously, I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan, and I'm extremely biased. So that's the first thing to remember. This is just some weirdo Canadian talking to you. But the Oilers and Rangers have a lot of history. Like, Glenn Sather used to coach the Oilers. Then he went and played for the Rangers. Gretzky and Messier played for both teams. This would be a really kind of a low-key, really huge marquee matchup for the NHL. You've got the biggest market in the New York Rangers. You've got one of the most successful franchises in NHL history with the Oilers. And you've got like these connections throughout the past 20 years. It would be a really cool series. To me, that's the one I want to see. I think Florida and Edmonton would be fun as well. Really, I like all four of these teams. I think any finals matchup is going to be pretty interesting, but I really want to see Edmonton, New York. I think that would be a very, very cool series for a lot of reasons.
All right, let's switch over to the Charles Schwab, the PGA event that's ongoing this weekend here. What are your reactions right now to the leaderboard? We got Davis Riley is up the top, obviously, as you'd imagine, is the odds-on favorite to win right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. But Scotty Scheffler is right there at the same odds, and he is tied for 15th.
Yeah, both guys coming in plus 500 for the final round. Obviously, Davis Riley getting to 10 under. I don't want to say, I don't want to be the guy, I'm not shocked that this guy who's like 200 to 1 is leading, but Davis Riley's a very talented player. He's won a couple times on the Korn Ferry Tour. This is a guy who was on the verge of being like a top 30 player at one point. It looked like he was going to break through, maybe join that sort of elite squad of guys who were always contending. He's got one of the best swings on the PGA Tour. It's really smooth. He just looks like an elite player, and he's a good putter as well, but his game kind of fell off. He almost won here back in 2022. So don't be shocked if Davis Riley wins this, I guess is what I'm saying. But this event tends to get very congested. We've seen a lot of guys come from like 5-6 back after 2 rounds. It's just the nature of the course. It's tough to make birdies on Sunday. So don't be shocked if someone from, like 5 shots back really makes a run over the weekend. We've seen that numerous times at this event. So congested leaderboard. Riley's got the lead right now, but he's a very sort of what you'd call roller coaster like player. He is due to finish one of these ones off, though, Steve. And like I said, I won't be shocked if he does.
Let me ask you about the, potentially other winners here there, because obviously we have Buckley and Cootie who are tied for second here, but they have some pretty long odds to win it all. They're double-digit, underdogs to win this, whereas someone like Sungjae Im, who is for fourth, is at 10 to 1. Is there any of these guys maybe like in the top 5 that you like to maybe kind of sneak their way in, or is it just kind of Riley or Scheffler for you?
I mean, you can make a good argument. You just go to the guys with the longest odds, like Pearson Cootie is, plus 1,600. Buckley is plus 1,600 as well. I would actually go further back. I mean, Sungjae Im to me is probably the guy I would pick. I know he's only a plus 1,000. It's only the 4th longest odds.
Yep.
So it doesn't sound that big, but he gained like 4 strokes on 3.7 strokes on approach, in round 2. Im's got a really clean short game. He's a pretty good putter when it gets going. It would not be shocking to me to see Sungjae Im kind of put it all together here. He's a guy who's only won twice, but it just feels like he should be winning more. So I lean Sung JM. I think if you wanted to go really further back, you might look at a guy like Tom Kim at plus 5,500 even. He's far back, but he's just a player who could like shoot 64 on any day. And if you want a real sort of more of a long shot bet, this is only for a top 10, but Matt Kuchar's plus 550 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. This is a veterans course. He's actually playing pretty good. He's already in T16. So one good round on the weekend here, Kuchar probably gets you in the top 10. We see a lot of these older guys just perform well at Colonial. So plus 550 for Matt Kuchar for a top 10, another kind of prop I'm looking at.
All right, Jeff, appreciate you joining the show. Have you seen Superbad? Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Very
like
good.
a million times.
We'll have you back next week. We're going to cool down here on the sweat. When we come back, Julian will join the show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the final block of The Sweat. Julian Edlow, Steve Buchanan. That was a pretty smooth show. Like, for just the two of us, the only, men to come in here and work on a long weekend, I think that we did a pretty noble job here. It isn't over yet, though.
Producer Drew says in our ear, it's not over yet.
All
Still
right.
plenty of time to screw it up.
There is plenty of time to screw it up. But what would the nice thing is, everything has gone smooth to this point, and you can view that over on DraftKings, youtube.com/DraftKings. Everything that we've covered here on the show, the all-important Game 3s in the NBA and the NHL playoffs. We did a ton of race day bets. Pierce said a lot of things. I half listened, but I'm assuming he gave us some good bets here for the Indy 500, Coca-Cola 600, and the Monaco Grand Prix. And then NL East, we talked a lot about the Phillies, who are just absolutely on fire. The Braves are hanging around, got a good team, but will it be enough to overcome the Phillies, who have just benefited from a really good schedule, good team overall, I will say, but really taking advantage of that under 500 schedule that they've been playing there. Just kind of recap everything that we've talked about, a lot of NBA stuff that we've covered. Just your overall, couple of your favorite bets here for tonight, tomorrow. What are you feeling for the NBA? If someone was just like, give me a couple things that you really feel strong about, we'll go from there.
I'll start in baseball because we spent a lot of the show talking about the Phillies.
Okay.
I've bet the Phillies plus 300 to win the division. I've bet the Phillies plus 195 to win the division. I'm going to bet the Phillies today at minus 120 to win the division. I'm going to bet them for the third and probably final time.
Yep.
Because we don't need to be adding at anything more than minus 120. I just like the position that they're in. They've got a big lead. You pointed out earlier in the show, the schedule sets up nicely for them to grow their lead potentially before it toughens up near the end. And they're also just playing really well. Like, we can talk schedule and lead and whatever, but they're playing really well, and I don't think that's going to necessarily come undone. So I will take a third crack at the Phillies to win the division.
And I talked about this too before, when I mentioned, look, if you had bet the Braves already, and it was a pretty large number, like preseason, like I want to say it was like, God, maybe 200, minus 200, minus 300, like it was sizable.
Yeah, it was big.
They were the second biggest favorites to win the division aside from the Dodgers. But I said, look, with this Strider injury, if you bet the Phillies now, like there are going to be hedging opportunities. So if you're in that boat now, you're getting the Braves at almost even money to win the division. Do I think they're going to win the division? I don't think so. But like if you're looking for a way out, like this is your opportunity because there are only two teams that are going to win that division. It's not like there's going to be a third team creeping in here. It's not going to be the Mets. It's not going to be the Nationals. It's certainly not going to be the Marlins. So you have a rare two-team race before the month of June even hits at this point. So, you are going to make money somewhere. There is money to be made here in this division specifically because after that, there really isn't like a clear-cut winner for any other division right now, aside from the Dodgers, but I don't know if you're looking to take minus 1,400 on the Dodgers to win the division right now. Padres 22-1 after that with the second best odds. So this is such a unique situation in this division where I think there is money to be made because like even in the NL Central, it's the Brewers and Cubs, sizable gap, and then the Cardinals, but Cardinals starting to play well now. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. So what happens there? So this division specifically, there's a lot to I think take advantage of in this division.
Yep. I'll go back to NBA draft as well because
Okay.
I squeezed in a nugget at the end. And again, this isn't one that I want to force home necessarily because this isn't like a one-unit play or anything. But just a little bit, worth a crack, some lunch money, number 1 overall pick. It's just so open, and a weird team won the lottery in the Hawks. What are their needs? Should they trade the pick? Should they keep the pick?
Yep.
Is the pick going to be made to build alongside Trae Young? Is the pick going to be made with Trae Young being shipped out and you're kind of starting over? There's so many uncertainties in this draft, and it's so weak at the top that it is a year where, like we're coming off a year where the easiest bet of all time, if you wanted to tie up $1,000 to win $10, you bet on Victor Wembanyama. This is the complete opposite. It's worth throwing a dart at a guy that is at a long number a month in advance that could just work his way up boards that a team falls in love with, or there's a trade, something changes in the meantime. And that guy that I'm going to do that with is somebody that we know something about, Stephon Castle. We saw him play really well for that UConn national title team. Now, scouts obviously are doing their work on all the international guys, and they're going to know, they don't want to miss the next Luka Doncic and draft DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley ahead of him. So, they're going to do their research. But these guys aren't standouts from what I've seen and what I've been told. So Stephon Castle has good length, good size. He's an NBA caliber wing that can really help a team. Now, I think the best fit, and where I've seen him get mocked a lot, is number 4 to San Antonio. I think he's a nice piece to go with Wembanyama, and the Spurs would be really happy with that. But if we're talking about a guy that's being mocked a lot at 4, and there's huge question marks around the top 3 picks, 50-1,
Right.
I'll give that a whirl.
Now, how would you feel, though, if they traded out of this pick?
I'm not even doing it really in terms of who has the pick.
That's fair.
That's the nice part is that, and again, this is like, $20 or whatever,
right.
$10, like
right.
small bet, see what you can, see if you can just hit a scratch ticket with it. But I don't care who has the pick.
When was the last draft, if you can even remember, where like the top pick was so uncertain?
It might be that Anthony Bennett draft, and he didn't work out. A lot of the top picks didn't work out, but that was what year was that? God, the Anthony Bennett draft. We had the producers were saying the Banchero, Jabari Smith draft, but that was kind of like
Was that?
It wasn't bad though.
Yeah.
Those were good prospects, and it was just a back and forth of who was going to go 1. I'm talking like bad prospects at the top. It's been a while. Maybe Anthony Bennett.
So obviously, this is Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
Where does this rank in terms of best long weekends that we get to go through during the year?
So, no, I'm not going to Hanukkah, as I joked pre-show. Although when you get that double Hanukkah, it's 8 days. You could have 2 holiday weekends for Hanukkah. That always stands out. I think 1 for me has to be Labor Day weekend.
Really?
I know it means summer's over, but it means football's back. It's week 1 of college football.
And kids go back to school.
I'm still.
You're not there yet. You will.
I know.
You will
See,
be.
that's helpful. So I love summer, but I'm gonna go that feeling of football being back.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go Labor Day 1. Memorial Day is probably then 2 because it's the kickoff of summer and we get to relax a little bit and enjoy summer. After that, I don't know. Like I would say July 4th because isn't it on a Wednesday this year? It's just gonna be this whole mess of
that's
time
gonna be a
off.
disaster of a week actually.
But it also for me. There's nothing on the sports calendar. I do kind of tying it into sports. Memorial Day weekend, we always got big NBA playoff games, and you're getting ready for summer. Labor Day, you got welcome back of football. July 4th, I'm generally just betting on if some dude's going to eat over or under 64 and a half hot dogs. It's not the best sports betting holiday.
That's going to be Emerson's pinnacle. That's going to be the
Emerson, we need to bring up the tape, too. Mr. Glizzy. We did the hot dog eating contest on the show.
Yeah.
He tried it. He ate
can't do it.
1.5 hot dogs and was like, burp, I'm full.
Yeah. Absolute fraud. Yeah, he can't even do it.
He's a fraud. I'll eat Emerson in a
his personality
hot dog.
is based off hot dogs, and he can only eat 1.5.
That's quite a gig.
Yeah, that is quite a gig.
What would you say your personality is? Hot dogs. All right, you got to rank yours now.
No, Memorial Day first.
Okay. So that fits for you, though, because it's baseball.
Baseball season, yeah.
Yeah, I like to tie mine into...
This is when baseball season starts to get a lot of attention because NBA's winding down, NHL's winding down, now the situation. But Labor Day is close because then I get rid of the kids, and then that's fantastic.
All about getting rid of
Because
your
I'll tell you, when school ends in about a month and they're home 24/7, I'm going to love coming here. I might come in here on days off.
Yeah, so I'm still at the daycare phase, so I'm not there yet.
You'll get there.
Every day is the same. But you got to do summer camps and stuff, no?
No.
You got to get them out somewhere. They just sit in the house
I tell them go weed whack the lawn. Real quick, best bet for me today.
Cheap
I do
labor.
like that. It is indeed. I do like that Seattle-Washington Nationals under today is at 9 runs with some juice on the under there. I think it was minus 120 when we talked about this during the first hour there. But like I said here, both teams really strong against the under so far this season. Seattle hitting it at a 59% rate on the under so far this season here. You got Logan Gilbert going for the Mariners. You got Trevor Williams going for the Nationals. Trevor Williams has been probably the Nationals' best pitcher up to this point. He's been phenomenal, and that's something you haven't been able to say about him for a couple of years now. I think he ended with an ERA above 5 last year. Like I mentioned, Logan Gilbert's been really good for the Seattle as well. 3.44 expected ERA, so been as good as advertised, but this feels like a lot of runs for two good pitchers going today.
I'll squeeze one last one in.
Okay.
Pascal Siakam assists over 3.5. If Halliburton is to sit, Siakam played for the Pacers 5 games this year without Halliburton. He averaged 6.2 assists. He went over 3.5 in all of them. He went for 6+ in 3 of them. You can get 6+, I think, at plus 360 last I looked on DK Sportsbook. Maybe squeeze that in, but even if Halliburton doesn't play and he's limited, ball's in Siakam's hands more. He had 7 assists in the first game of the series. I like that prop for tonight.
All right, that is the show. That is the sweat.
And that is cake in Steve's face.
There is cake in my
that Steve Aoki has no recollection of.
All right, that's going to do a show here for Julian Edlow. I'm Steve Buchanan. We will see you guys later.